Okay, guys, the recording is on. Hello, everyone. Let's start. Does anybody wants to share anything or ask? As I said, there was a lot of discussion in the Android channel today, so maybe, Javier, do you want to start maybe?
Yeah, sure. So where do you want me to start exactly?
You raised an issue on the Android channel about changing the way the credentials are taken from Zap.
Yeah, exactly. So what's happening usually is not a good practice to get that's why I think Rand was also concerned to get all these credentials in the repositories itself. And as it was discussed in the channel in itself, the issue is that also there is a few options that we can actually do this, and the environmental variables actually solution, it only works if you actually launch Android Studio from terminal. The reason for this is because Android Studio doesn't pass the environmental variables to Gradle. I have no idea why, and I think there was an issue raised to Google, but they haven't fixed it. So there is, as I said in the channel, there's a few options we can take here. It's just a matter of picking one and then make sure we don't put any more credentials in the repos. And then I see them there everywhere. In every single repository, pretty much, there is actually the hard-coded credentials, either on Gradle properties or actually in the build.gradle files. And then whatever we take, just document it and then make sure that, we all follow the same thing. And then also, like, for any new person that, can actually, make the whatever adjustments needed for be able to actually get that working as well. So, yeah, I guess it's a matter of taking a decision which one is the one that we all agree upon. As I said, for me, doesn't really matter. The environmental variable, it was a nice solution in the sense that you can just put it once and then all the others just refer to environmental variables, and then
yeah, but it didn't really work the way we expected it to work.
Sorry, what?
It didn't work the way we intended it to work. So
yeah. Yeah, if that's the preferred solution by everyone, and no one has a complaint about that, and then I can actually take that task on myself, and then I can actually do the work. So
okay, I guess it's best to consult with Ron about this, as he's in charge on the basically on all the repositories and how things are handled in Circus and the rest, and in Gradle. So I guess it's best to consult with him on this.
Okay, cool. Any of you guys have any special preference from any of the options that I mentioned?
Yeah, it's worth taking another look.
Yeah.
In the Android channel.
Sure. And
okay, great. Anything else? Anybody else want to raise something today?
Question, but that I never got responded on the. So we had a good discussion regarding the if we should use undeterministic version numbers or not, and I've seen that different people have different opinions regarding this, and it's not so much about that. It's more about the versioning of the plugins, like where I'm also concerned. So how do we know which version belongs to which bin drive version, and why do we have sometimes different numbers? So sometimes the manifest version that the person can choose, for example, in the UI in SAP, it's 0.06. And then you actually look at the library version, and the library version is 1.4 something. And it's like, okay, so how do you know which one belongs to which?
It's in the manifest of the plugin. You can.
Usually we try to align the version of the manifest and version and dependency. So they will be the same. For example, for our team, we have a plugin that has dependency to a third-party player. Okay, so and basically this this team that developed the third-party player has also versioning. Okay, so basically, in order to allow, for example, for our project manager to understand which version of their player we are using with our version of the plugin, okay, we basically extended, instead of 2 or 3 digits version number, we extended it to 4. Okay, so each plugin has 4 digits version number. The first 2 are the dependency of the third party. The last 2 are the dependency of our plugin basically, or something like that. So, you know, like each team, if you have custom plugins, you can decide your own logic. But basically, the manifest and the dependency usually are aligned. Usually.
It was more than anything.
Why not?
It was more than anything. If you're not the one developing the plugin, how do you map historical versions with historical bin rate, like versions? So obviously we know that the ones it's there. So somehow you need to read the manifests and be able to trace, which version of the bin tray. Like I can imagine, for example, the situation where you have an app which hasn't updated for a while, and then you change the SDK for whatever, and then all of a sudden you don't know which SDK belongs to what, so that's what I meant. So
because of the plus, you mean?
Sorry, the what?
Because of the plus?
Yeah, no, because of the plus, because of the possibility of having two different versioning numbers on the manifest for Zap and also bin tray, So having that possibility of having two different numbers, it can lead to, especially for historical reasons, to understand which manifest version belongs to which SDK. You know what I mean?
Javier, usually this manifest file is in version control. If it isn't in version control, I would suggest that everybody adds it to version control as quickly as possible, even as we speak.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we have it in version control, then definitely we can trace it. It's just, of course.
We add it, normally we add our files in Team Europe to our plugin repository.
Yeah.
So everything can be tracked.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if anyone stumbles upon one that is not there, then it will be great if we can add it. So make sure we have that historical reasons, I guess. And then it's not a major issue then. And that's from my side, I think. So I think the plus one is a discussion that we could be like the entire day talking about it. So, And so maybe we can take it another time with a beer or something.
I actually had two things that I wanted to raise. Something that Merav and I looked into in the for things that ProSieben complained about. So one thing, I don't know if you guys tackle this issue, but when you upload a debug version to HockeyApp, and you try to update the debug version from HockeyApp, it causes an error. The customer complained that they suspect that we are using two separate key stores when we are running the debug version. And for that reason, they cannot do an automatic update from HockeyApp if we are using a debug version, which to me sounded strange because nobody is changing the debug key store in Zap between consecutive builds.
What is debug key store? Key store is only for release.
No. There is a debug key store. Whenever you build an APK, you create it with a key store. Your Android Studio holds a key store for creating debug builds.
So, Guy, I know of two debug key stores. One of them is automatic, and it is specific for each user. And the other one is just like the release key store. Like it would be a release key store that we would be using for debug. So these are the two options.
Release key store that is used for debug, but why do we need?
Yeah, I mean the debug stores that you are using when you're generating a debug build, they're automatic and they're specific for each person, each machine, and like.
But I'm talking about versions that are created via Zap. Debug and release versions via Zap. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, the debug key store is different between each developer on their own machine and Android Studio. Yes, everyone has their own debug key store. We can obviously align that also, but that's not the case. They're saying that they're creating two consecutive builds in Zap, debug builds, and they cannot update from one to the other automatically because they get an error. This app cannot be installed. They suspected that it is related to a key store not matching. The error that they're getting in the log file is a one that can be related to a key store mismatch issue.
It's probably not that, like the way you're
Not
explaining
that
it.
I can think of, obviously, because nobody's changing the key stores, and if one build is running with the debug key store, the other should run with the exact same key store.
Yeah, that's weird though. And could it be a versioning, Alan? Like I don't know if you experienced that. Sometimes you cannot install an APK because the version that you're trying to install it's under the one that you're trying to install, and it's the only thing I
It
can.
will automatically uninstall and install the new version.
Yeah, it should be automatic. So my question was, nobody else encountered this issue. We actually managed to reproduce it pretty easily, but we didn't know what happened, what caused it.
Okay.
So just trying to update a debug to another version of debug using HockeyUp.
Is it happening for each 2 subsequent versions, or just for any particular versions?
No, they complain for it in general.
So if I create a new version now and I try to install it on the top of the older version, I will get this error.
Install it from HockeyUp. That's obviously what they said.
Okay.
Okay, we have an open ticket on this, and we're now investigating and trying to understand. But I was wondering if anybody else encountered this issue.
Yeah, it's very interesting. No, I didn't encounter it really.
Okay.
But it's interesting.
It's something that you would expect everybody to notice. But yeah, so that's one. And another issue. This is actually something that I've already created a fix for. But it's something that is related to the customization, or actually the localization of the rater dialog, the app rater dialog. I want to show you how it looks like. So just quickly open. It's 7.3. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Try to show my screen also. Okay. You can see my screen now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. You see the operator dialog now?
Yeah.
So it's in German, but the 2 bottom buttons are in English. And the reason for that is in the SDK, everything here is taken from the ZAP localization, whereas these 2 buttons were left in the SDK localization. So actually the fix is very easy. Merav created a pull request, which I reviewed already. One sec. Yeah, there it is. It's very simple. Just remind later button set text from ZAP, and cancel button set text, whereas it was taken from somewhere else, from the SDK itself. So very simple, but the reason I'm raising it now is just to make sure that everybody is okay with changing this behavior, because it might be that some localization are missing in ZAP, or I don't know why. Some languages are missing. And just so that everybody is on the same page, we are about to make a change that is for the better. It's something that seems to be like a mistake, but it might cause issues if localizations are not in place for the rater dialog. Okay, so it's a SDK change, really simple one, but I just want to get everybody's attention to it, because if you are already all of a sudden have regressions in the rater for any reason, just make sure that the localization are set correctly in ZAP, because currently they are taken partly from ZAP and partly from the SDK, and it's obviously wrong.
Cool, thanks for bringing it up. Pretty useful. So
yeah,
we'll have it into account if we see it.
Okay, so I'm going to approve. I already approved that she's going to merge it now, but it's good that everybody is on the same page on this. Okay, I think I can stop sharing now. These are the items that I had this week. Gil, is it worth maybe mentioning something about the Android Oreo issues that we seem to be having now?
Yes. So I wrote down on the Slack channel. Maybe I was not clear enough. So it's really simple. I will try to explain it better. First of all, we released a new SDK. We sent it to Applause. They didn't find any problems with Android 8 devices. But for sure there are. So if you can, when you develop and when you use an emulator or something, just use Android 8 emulator, so you will be able to find problems if we have some. That's one. So the only problem that we do know for now is when you open an app, when you are on landscape, the app will just won't load, which is weird. I mean, from reading the release notes of Android 8, it doesn't say anything about it. It doesn't say anything like that could cause any problem with our code. So I investigated a little bit, and what I saw is that we have the intro activity and the onCreate method, not of the intro activity on the app level, but on the generic level, which is the father of it. There's a logic. Apparently, each template defines its orientation, can define its orientation. So the logic says what is the orientation, what is the desired orientation according to the template, and if I need to change the orientation, I will do it now, and just finish just return. Won't load anything, won't do anything else. So it happens, and then because of and set the new orientation, and it happens, and when it does, a new like the onCreate is being recalled on Android 7 devices, and when it happens, the regular flow continues of loading the app, showing the intro, etc. For some reason, the Android 8 doesn't do it. I mean, when you change the orientation, you don't call the onCreate method again. So I saw that on the manifest, on the intro activity, there's this parameter which is configuration, change orientation, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's I wonder how come it works on the old apps, because it should include screen size as well, according to Google documentation. But for some reason, it does work. For Android 8, it doesn't. So I think, I mean, this definition is redundant because we do expect the second onCreate call. But I wanted to raise it with you because I wanted to see if because someone did it, I want to know why. I mean, if there's a specific reason for it. Obviously, removing this line fixes this issue, but it's still kind of weird. I'm not really comfortable with just removing it. So I just wondered if any one of you had some inputs for it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why the onCreate in the current state on Android 7 and below, the onCreate is called again. Maybe it's what you described. Maybe we're not catching all the possibilities of configuration changes like screen size and whatever, and it still causes the onCreate to be called again. And I also don't know what changed in Android Oreo so now it's not being called, or maybe they removed some of the configuration changes in the activity changes orientation. Maybe it's not calling change size anymore or something of that sort. From my experience, trying to play around with when the app is not built from the get-go to support two orientations, and we are trying to bound it to a single orientation, from the moment that this decision is taken, you have to be very careful in changes that you're making to the manifest and to any configuration that you're trying to do, because of the way that Android behaves with recreating the activity. And if you are doing network calls in the onCreate or right afterwards, they will be created again, and you will be getting involved in some memory leaks can happen, and you will be able to get asynchronous calls getting called back when you don't expect them. So when you decide to go on the path of locking your application into a certain orientation, which is obviously not the best practice, but it makes things a lot easier in many cases, and for us it was a requirement from the beginning. Then you have to be very careful in changes that you make in that area, because you might get unexpected results even when you can even anticipate them now.
I suggested to add the flag in the ZAP version orientation, and then add it in the manifest.
Yeah, I thought about it, but templates are bounded to a specific orientation. I mean, you don't want the Reshet application to be landscape. If you don't support both orientations, you can't just allow it.
I didn't understand. If
you
set it
you don't want to allow a template that was designed for a specific orientation to get built with the other orientation, because you don't support it.
But what is your suggestion again, Dror?
That you will set in the manifest the orientation. Set orientation in the manifest for the app, for the activity.
First of all, it has to come for all activities.
Yeah.
But still, setting the orientation is not enough. You also have to say config change.
No, if you set the orientation, it's fixed orientation no matter what.
It's fixed orientation, but I'm not sure that it's not doing the effect of calling. I think both configurations are required in order to prevent the onCreate from being recalled.
If you want to start a player, for example, you want it to be landscape.
Yeah, you start the player, you want it landscape, and then you go back, you will get an on-configuration change call. So in that case, the rules are very strict in what you need to do in order to keep your orientation set to only to one. But we are handling it in the code also. The code, like Gil mentioned in the beginning, we are doing something related to the orientation in the onCreate. So it requires
the code that it was written, I can see it on the annotation. It was written by Pablo Valdez, and according to his commit message, is fix an issue of double launching main activity when the orientation was requested. That's what it says, the comment of the changes that he did there. So.
Oh, the changes to the code or to the manifest?
To the code.
No, to the code. So on the annotation of you can actually see that he was the one who, I don't know, was trying to resolve that issue. So.
Okay. But it obviously didn't solve, or am I wrong? So Gil, what's the next step? How are you going to? So the only thing that you can think of right now is removing the.
I have two options. I can do a little refactor there, which because it's like Android 8 apps on development doesn't work, and refactoring stuff on that particular area is very sensitive. I think it's not the best solution now. On the other hand, if I could just, make the Android 8 application act exactly as the previous versions, I think if I can do it today, it would be the best solution. I think that just removing this manifest line does that, because it's just what it should be. So I tend to do this solution now.
But the logic should recall the onCreate or not? How it's supposed to act?
It should recall. If you don't recall, okay. If you don't recall,
you
don't load the app. You don't load anything. You cut the app on the onCreate page.
So remove the return. I don't know. Why do we need to return if it's... What is the purpose of this return in the middle of the onCreate?
Just what Javier told, because you don't want... I mean, the onCreate does being called twice, but on the first time, it does nothing. That's what Pablo tried to do.
Okay, so let's...
Maybe it's something that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think the code should be changed. It's not... if Pablo did it, so...
It seems to me like it's a workaround, and we're trying to keep this workaround in all costs. Whereas maybe...
it looks like it. It's a really weird piece of code, so...
I agree that it should be changed, but, changing this flow is very, very sensitive, and we have an app that is not launching.
It seems more correct.
But
it seems more correct than removing the flag.
We need to do it anyway. It doesn't matter with the...
Maybe we need to do it, maybe do some pair programming, or maybe try to tackle this issue together, not just Gil on it alone, because it's going to affect everybody eventually.
Yeah. So let's groom it tomorrow and decide how to...
Yeah, Gil, maybe we need to dedicate some time, a few developers together, just to try and think about all the possible solutions and scenarios, and try to debug it together, not leave you alone with it. Because the code change is mandatory. We have to do something to support Android 8. Everybody wants to support Android 8. It's a must, obviously.
And I don't think the onCreate should call twice anyway.
Need to understand why it's called twice in the beginning.
A good way to actually if we change this and later to make sure we are not breaking things when we actually change the code, it will be to add a espresso test or something like that. So if we actually add some good testing there, we could actually ensure that later on, if that code has to be changed, and we are breaking things, we will know beforehand, not afterhand. And so it will be pretty handy to actually write some UI, even if it's possible, unitary test and UI test there as well. So to make sure that things are working as we expect. So
yeah.
Okay. So Gil will probably follow up on that either later this afternoon or tomorrow morning to try to debug this together. But I wouldn't go for the manifest approach, but rather for the understanding the code issues before that. Okay. But for some reason, it did work on some apps that we tried, Android 8. The reason why we didn't encounter it, or the Applause team did not...
and nobody touched it.
Applause,
even on Android 8, Applause didn't solve this bug.
Yeah. So it's only when you launch it in...
We had a different bug in previous Android versions that told in Bellator, right, Tarek? It was with Kariti. That all the pages, when you have a bottom tab bar and you open the phone while it's in landscape and the app is in portrait, so all the calculation of the components are mistakes, wrong calculation.
The bottom tab bar is a plugin.
Yeah. But it's a root navigation plugin that need to calculate the screen size and stuff like this.
Well, this doesn't have to, maybe because it's because today we have components from Google that can have the same functionality, and we don't.
I don't know. I'm talking about the bottom tab or plugin.
Yeah. Because it's a tab view. Something else.
So we need to groom it together and find a solution.
I think so too.
Yeah, something like that as well. I was actually just thinking about it, about the test. Actually, it might be helpful even to write the test beforehand. So say, okay, we write a test. This is what we expect is going to happen. It needs to be happening. And then you execute the code. And then you try to match that, actually that you pass your test. So you can actually ensure that the behavior you are actually coding is actually the behavior that you actually want. That's a different approach, so we can actually be more safe beforehand to actually when we do this type of change, for example. So saying, okay, this orientation, it should happen this, and should go to this. If you change the orientation, I write the test like that, and then see it actually what's happening today, and then change the code if something is wrong. So
yeah,
and make sure your tests are passing. That would be handy, for example.
Okay. We'll start the grooming tomorrow. Sorry?
No, okay. It's okay.
No, I'm saying we'll groom this together, and obviously, yes, testing will be an important part of this in solving it for the future as well.
Okay, now I have another issue. I don't want to take much time, so I want to be like really quick about it. I know that Javier did, the other Javier did a fix for the web view aspect ratio, and I know that someone reverted it. So I just want to know if it was because the code wasn't good enough, or did it cause actual problems?
Who reverted?
I did. It causes different regression bugs in some apps. When we use the in Bellator, yeah. When we use the web view in show page, for example.
So it was inside the composite component? Okay.
Yeah, cool. So you guys know, I'm actually writing a pretty extensive report because the issue is pretty complicated, and it's a whole bunch of different reasons why things are happening the way they're happening regarding web, how the web is coded, and how we are rendering with the list view and everything. So I'll share with you guys the report because I was writing for Javier and for Ran as well to take a decision on this, and for you to also to take a look. And it's pretty extensive, the reporting itself. So you can take a look, and then we can take a decision about what to do. So it has to do with over-scrolling and like how the web view calculates its size, and the way we actually perform the layouts, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So how the web app is coded as well with the height and everything, and it's I'll share it with you when it's ready, and I'll work on that this afternoon. So
okay, basically you can fix it by changing the HTML code
to a fixed height. The HTML.
I don't know exactly, but as Javier said, he will publish something that some guideline or something that we need to know.
Yeah, let me do it because it's pretty hard to explain. But I tried already a couple of times, and it's super talking, and it's because there's a lot of like web views, web apps, and a lot of things going on. And I'll just share the report with you guys, and you can read it if you want.
Okay.
And, okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you face any issues with the feed and the loading certain feeds, Gil and I also, we were talking about it. There seems to be an issue in the provider for Applicaster, and they're already working on this. I guess it's Francois.
Francois already fixed it.
So Francois fixed it, you say?
I think only Televisa using the Applicaster provider data source.
Also, versions we are using.
For programs, not bits.
Yeah, it's already fixed. I think you can just use Pora to deploy for the specific version that you need.
It's affect also programs, and what was the fix? What was the problem?
The problem was that meta groups was an object instead of an array. That's it.
In all the requests?
Only if you have one media group, instead of getting it as an array, you get it as an object.
Okay. So?
So yeah, and the guys are working on a new fix for that. So you, Gil, you have a meeting with them today, right?
With who?
with Francois and someone else. He told me that you guys needed to do something because there were some other things that it was causing issues as well. That's what I heard from Francois.
No, if you talk about the problem with the media groups, it's solved already. Do you have another?
Okay. No, it was that one. It was that one. Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Moving on. Kind of lost some people along the way. Yeah, so last week we updated, and I updated on the app links, or basically generally the HTTP deep linking feature. And we said that there is a growing interest in that feature because it's something that now many of our clients would like to do. And actually there is also an enhancement to that feature. Dror showed me this week that there is a feature that is provided by Firebase that is called dynamic links. It's a very nice feature. Actually, I can share the screen quickly and just show it because it's...
we have some customers that want it. So.
Yeah, and obviously, because of the nature of how it looks, it looks like a very appealing feature. It might be requested by others as well. Just show it quickly from their documentation. Okay, so this is the dynamic links. I hope you guys can see. And the use cases would be a user gets a URL, HTTP URL, by sharing from a friend or whatever. And now there are two scenarios. Either the user has the app, and if he has the app that needs to be opened, the app is opened using HTTP deep linking. That's just what we were discussing last week. This is done on Android 5.0 and below. It will open the select app dialog with the browsers and the app. And when app links from Android, Marshmallow and above is supported, it will open directly the app. But the more interesting part is if the user doesn't have the app installed, it would show the Google Play page. And once the app is installed, it will directly go into that page. So it kind of lets the user complete the flow.
The deep linking,
it saves the deep link that needs to be opened after the installation and then launches the app with the deep link. So it kind of completes the flow for the user. And actually, this is very similar, or it's identical to what we created a few years ago that is called public page. I don't know if everybody is aware of this.
The name.
But the public page is exactly that. We have URLs that we create for our clients that can be opened, and then there is a code that is running in the background. Yeah, a code that is running as part of the page that says, if I have the app, launch the app using a URL scheme. And if I don't have the app, launch Google Play with the bundle, with the package name for launching the correct app. But here it also completes the flow for the user. So not only does the user installs the app, but they also go into the exact place. So it kind of creates a smooth experience for the user. And that obviously is something that a lot of customers would want, because it actually converts, and that's the use case here, converting web users to app users. And this is a very strong feature by Firebase that is based on what we described last week.
It's good also for Google search. If you search something in Google, so it can just directly get you to the app.
Get you to the app, and again, if the app is not installed, get you to the app, and then install the app, and then continue the flow. Very, very strong feature. And it is based on the exact same infrastructure that we are now creating for the app links. So once we enable the app links, the app links or HTTP deep linking in general, once this is enabled, it can be supported as part of the dynamic links use case. Cool. So this is just another, possibly an upcoming feature. Who wanted it? Somebody in the US team, right?
No, Reshet.
Reshet also? Okay.
Khan.
Restaurants.
Obviously. Okay, so that's that. So remember the name, dynamic links. You'll probably hear it sometime soon again. That's it for that. Anybody else got something they wanted to share, discuss, or ask? Okay, we don't have too much time to go over all the... Yeah, sorry? Okay, that was probably... Yes. Okay, so we don't have much time to go over all the projects, but now if you guys have something that you would like to share from what you're doing now that can be beneficial for others to know, or just...
No, me personally, no. I'm just working on a bug in a specific application that I'm sure no one is interested on, like this specific bug, specific application. But yeah, the solution is like how to debug it is like something that I'm like I need to debug an issue when you purchase something from a production app. So I was wondering how can you debug this without like every time going and purchasing again, like the real item, like paying real money.
First of all,
how this can be debugged in like, without paying.
You're supposed
Can
to
you
be...
mock it? Can you mock it? Can you mock it?
No, I don't think so. Like, in order to reproduce this bug, I need to go over like...
You need the full flow of the purchase.
Going to Google in-app and then inserting the username and password and then purchasing the...
No, the problem...
If you're a test user, it doesn't work
the
on the
problem
production
that
app?
on debug version and not release version that's in the store. The server, our server,
Yes.
won't return us the full voucher. Like, I don't know, something in the flow when you are run debug
It's
version.
different than release.
The certification is
Okay.
missing some
You're purchasing a
params.
subscription?
Yeah.
Or an item?
Subscription.
Okay.
What we're sending to the server is missing one of the params because it's a debug,
Okay.
and then the server won't return us the okay for the purchase, for the subscription.
Okay. I don't recall entirely, but I think you need to create a release version in order to test it. But you can create a release version that is debuggable. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you build with a release key store, I think maybe your problem is you're trying to purchase using a debug signing, and that's not possible, I think, on Google Play's part. You need to create a release version, but make it debuggable so that you can actually stop in the code. Without, of course,
Maybe,
without ProGuard.
No, yeah.
Remove the ProGuard, just change the configuration in the Gradle file so that you don't run ProGuard in the release version. You sign it with the release key store, but make the version debuggable true.
Think you need to upload it as a alpha or something, beta,
Yes, that's also true.
to the store.
You need to have a version installed. So maybe it's worth gathering all the information about purchases in general, because this seems to be like a lack.
Yeah,
I
Lack of
think we are
knowledge.
only one who are using subscriptions and stuff.
Yeah. One in the Israeli team. There are a couple of, I don't know, two apps in the Israeli team. Now we have one.
Have 8 or something.
Yeah, so it's not a very common scenario of having in-app purchases, but when it does exist, it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Really, it's really a problem to debug, and there's not too much knowledge in the
So
current,
maybe next week, give us
if I manage to fix it, I will
Yeah.
make
how to
Actually,
test it, how to.
come up with some conclusions, and also let's discuss, because we have quite a lot of experience from what Ruben and myself did recently for one of our apps. So let's discuss it during this week and try to come up with it can be a great introduction to this area, because a lot of people know some, but
Yeah,
nobody
part of
here
it.
knows everything about it. And the code is there, so it's just a matter of investing the time to learn and understand what's going on there. Okay, yeah, indeed, not an easy issue. Okay. Anything else wants to share?
Yeah, quick question. How do you guys feel like especially like sitting in different places with different regions and everything? How do we control all the bugs and everything for all the different like repositories? For example, I had this issue with the rake prepare, and I had no idea where to actually put that issue so everyone could actually be exposed to see the issue. You know, usually in GitHub, if you run it as open source, you will use GitHub. You know, you will create an issue, and then if it's actually an issue that you can work, you can create a PR for it and resolve the issue and everything. How do you? Yeah.
You're talking about the Slack channels. How do you know what Slack channel to use?
No, more like, okay, so for example, like if we want to have more like traceable, like in GitHub, for example, like somewhere where everyone can see the issues that, for example, we are raising in the SDK or in the generic app or in the. So I didn't know where to put it, so I actually just used Android to do that. And if you look at the app Android, you will see that I created 2 issues there because I didn't know where else to put it. So everyone could actually see, the things that I was actually trying to work with, and maybe we could have a, also.
So it's SDK or generic app level bugs that you're working on, or issues?
No, it was the rake prepare, for example. It was, in this case, give you an example, the SAP Android, for example. So with the rake and the prepare workspace issue. So I didn't know where to put that, like we don't have a common Trello board. We don't have a common.
Yeah, that's true.
The other system, I never remember the Linkit board. So I thought like, okay, so I might just use GitHub and then just, use GitHub for reporting the issue.
It goes back to the problem that we're multiple regions and multiple teams working on the same product. And we have to be very coordinated, but sometimes we don't have, or we do have, but we don't use the tools to make us more coordinated. Basically, now that the Zap team have at least more resources and a dedicated Android resource, Gil, for now. So maybe it can be concentrated on their side. I created an issue for the Zap team, not necessarily related to Android, and put it in their board. I don't think that this is what we need to do, but Gil, did you maybe discuss this issue with Ran, where to document all the issues that we currently have in the SDK, or things that we are working on the SDK level?
Yes, I did. I saw that you published a document how to open an issue from an outer team, out of Zap. I don't know if it's published yet or not. It's something that I did raise, and I think it should be raised again because for me. I know that it's hard for you to report bugs, but it's even harder for me to control them. So I hope that in the next few days I will have a better answer.
Okay. Javier, did that answer your question?
I guess in a few days we'll know.
Yeah, okay. Okay, but it addressed at least what you meant. That's good.
Yeah. So exactly. So it would be great to know that. So
I believe that Ran will also hear this recording, so he will also be able to respond on that.
I think that also Udi should be involved in it because like the coordination between teams, it's something that should be, I think, from someone that outside of the teams, so we can get him involved as well.
Yeah, also true. Okay. Anything else, guys, you want to share? Okay. I guess that's it for today. We had a lot of things to cover. And we'll follow up hopefully next week.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.